Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the law of attraction, manifesting success stories show comes in. If you are ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and I am back with Dave Woot for another interview in his manifesting success journey. So welcome, Dave.
Hey, Cassie. How you doing?
Fantastic. Excited to continue this story of how you have become an awesome manifester.
Oh, yeah.
And you're becoming even better, but you have become an amazing manifester. And we talked about that process and how that's opened up over the last year and 4 months-ish.
Mm-hmm.
In our last interview, if you missed it, make sure to go back and check out last week's episode. And Dave, I want to start with this. What's the best manifestation you've had over the past few months?
Yeah, the money coming in to completely pay off the credit card debt.
Yay!
Was epic.
Yes.
The feeling of being completely free, of being like, oh, I can take this money and actually put it to a different use now.
Yes.
Oh, I can actually save this money now.
Yes.
I can like potentially buy more synthesizers with this money now. Like, I'm in. Like, this is great. Let's do this.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. So awesome. And that was a $30,000 manifestation, right?
That was pretty epic. Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. And I love, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I just love, that now you get to invest that in a freedom fund or synthesizers or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have this question, but I want to talk a little bit about this. We did some coaching about what do I do with the money now? Because I'm really big on, I love when we pay things off, but we need to know where we're directing that money that's now freed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Dave was a former money chaser.
No more.
And what would you title your current money story?
Oh my gosh.
Totally putting you on the spot.
I like it. Well, the one I always go to is High Vibration Money Master.
Yes. That fits so perfect.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we had a conversation, what do you do with the money? And we talked about put it in a savings account and learn to have it there longer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How's that been feeling?
So far, so good. Just working through it and, plus working through like the whole budgeting process and learning and digging into that as well. It feels like there's a lot of good momentum moving forward into a more wonderful, I don't know how to put it, just budget way of handling and categorizing and understanding the ins and the outs of money, like the investments and I don't know how to
being a money master, right?
Being
like living into your story. Yeah. Understanding all of that and being like the high vibration is the attraction part and the money master. This is, we work on this. And I think a lot of people miss this when they just start trying to manifest money using the law of attraction. You have to step into that person, and you are stepping into that person who is the money master, because it's easier, I think, and it's easier to attract more money when you're managing your money and you are the master of your money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that word money master, because to me, mastery has never been a place that you get to. It's just a higher and more evolved sense of engagement.
Yes.
With what you are engaging with, I guess.
I love that. Yes. I totally agree. And that's how money manifesting, as you build this momentum, you can't help but then keep like mastering and learning and growing and attracting money because you've created this momentum. You are becoming this person. And when you're somebody who has money and who's creating money, you naturally become somebody who has more money and creates more money, who has more money and creates more money.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. I love it. All right. And I want to dive into inspiration and inspired action, definitely in this interview. So, will you share the story about connecting with the director and how that was inspired and you took inspired action when you were inspired and how that's evolved?
Well, I met this one director, 30 seconds. I met him for 30 seconds. I shook his hand. I said, "Hey, I'm Dave. I'm a composer." And he had to go do something. I was like, "All right, cool. No problem." Right. But he gave me his card and I was like, "Okay, this is great. This felt awesome." Right. And immediately after he walked away, I was like, "I'm gonna call that guy."
Yes.
So, I call him once, whatever, and I didn't hear back from him. I wasn't too worried about it because I just still felt like there was something there. So I called him back again and I got a text from him. It's like, all right, it's cool. It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Call him back again. And this time I caught him and we had a good, half an hour conversation, right? Call him back again. I mean, every single time, this was not forcing it. This was me following that voice and saying, like, there's just still something there. I need to go. And I didn't understand like this whole process until I started working with you, by the way. I just literally was following something. I had no idea what it was back then, but it's definitely inspiration.
Yeah.
So I call him again and he's like, "Hey, let's go hang out, grab some breakfast somewhere." I was like, "Cool." Right. We talk, we get to know each other better. And not long after that, I get a call from him and he's saying like, "Hey, do you have room to compose a film score for this one project?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally. I'm in. Let's do this right now.
Yes.
Let's go." Right. And that was so fun. He was the main actor in it, and it was directed by a close friend of his. So it was very tightly knit crew. It was interesting too, because the whole thing started during COVID-19, like right at the beginning of the pandemic. So there's all this story with that, and kept in touch with him. He's like, "Hey, do you want to do this like short horror film?" Totally, I'm in. Let's do this, right?
Yeah.
And we just kept in touch, and then he's like, "Hey, I want you to do this full-length film." I was like, "Yes, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's do this. Oh my God, yes." So yeah, it inspiration. It's for me. I know. I think we all know that experience of like trying to force things, of trying to force a certain avenue. And I think the thing that I forgot, the thing that I didn't understand was that maybe that avenue is not quite the best one. Maybe there's a better way. And I love how you put it when you talk about inspiration, just kind of leading you just in the right way to where you want to go. If I had forced that conversation, it wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Why?
I just feel like it just would have fizzled out. It was all just super like easy to do. It was so fun to talk to him, and it was fun to call him back and pester him a little bit. If it just felt good.
Yeah.
Right. I think people pick up on that. Like when I'm just calling them because it just feels good to talk about it. And if there's something that we can like work on together, that's cool too, but it's not usually the reason why I'm calling. It's just I get this thought in my head. I'm like, hey, you need to call this person. Hey, you need to call that person. And it always works out. Just feels good.
Yes. And it feels so much better because there's the other, the forcing, which may or may not work, but it's that, oh, you got to follow up. You haven't heard in 5 days, follow up. You haven't, you haven't done this, call them back. You haven't, right. Which is really, but another LOA thing that's in here is that desperation, right? That's all desperate. Like, I need you to call me back or I can't fulfill my dreams, basically, is kind of what's underneath that in a big way, right?
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. But when you're connecting to connect because you're inspired, you become this person who's like, oh, it's happening. Whether it's this guy is part of my journey or not, it doesn't matter because I'm creating what I'm creating and it's happening and I'm going to follow the whispers to get there. Yes. Yeah. And everybody, you want to work with that person because they're not like desperate and clingy, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And besides, they're just like fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
I've got like so many more friends now that are like this. Like, they're just so fun to hang out with.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. And is that something that you wanted in the beginning, or were you even able to see like, oh, I could have friendships, or was sort of everything a tunnel vision of how can this move my career forward?
I've luckily never been
that's awesome.
That way of like, how can I move my career forward? I entirely, excuse me.
Yeah.
There's always that thought in my head, like, okay, is this a good career move? Is that a good career move? But when it comes to meeting people, I tend to go for friendships first.
Yeah.
Frankly, and I'll be completely and totally unbelievably honest about this. I know my own loneliness. I understand it. I get it. I can see it. And friendships make me feel less lonely.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure my path is going to lead me to more people that just make my life feel really, really full and lovely. And at the same time, I get to use like my creative superpowers, my musical superpowers for them, to help them out, to make their projects just sing. I know it's going to happen. I just go for what feels good in the first place. Like, and that's another thing that I have you to thank for. It was in question before I met you. And it just became clearer that it should feel fun. It should feel easy. Like you talk about that a lot in the Enchanted Circle. Like, does this feel easy? I love that. That made all the difference to me.
Awesome. Yay. I love that. And I love talking about inspiration, and I love following that. It's amazing. And it's amazing what it keeps opening up. Yeah. I love that. So I know that your future self has been showing up, and I love this. He says things like, dude, you don't need this. You want this, but you don't need this. Tell us about that.
Sure. So last year I got really into like hardware outboard synthesizers. Is the format's called Eurorack.
Okay.
I mean, I look at it. I've got like this really awesome rack. You can't see it because it's it's over here-ish.
Right.
And there are pieces on here that I use very specifically, and there's other pieces on there that I'm like, why did I buy this? And I think I needed to learn a little bit about like why, how much am I going to use this or whatever. If it doesn't feel quite right, then I shouldn't force it. If I keep on thinking about it and keep on thinking about it, and it's just like, okay, the inspiration's there, I get it, I will jump in. I think that moment, what you're talking about, was when I was like very close to dropping like an extra $500 on a synthesizer. And I would have had to buy like a new case, I think, and doing all these other things. I'm like, come on, man. You don't need this right now. There's a world where you have all of these synthesizers. There's no reason to force it. It'll come together. It's easy, you know?
Yes, right?
I think that was the moment.
Yeah. It'll be easy. Yeah. And I love that, because I think I love this story and how your future self is speaking to you, because this is one of the things that I think is key to learning along that law of attraction journey, is like what I want versus what I need. And in the middle of that is what's inspired, right? Like sometimes we're like, oh, I need that thing. And very often that need is even the need sometimes, like we're good at the want, right? But our brains can convince us a lot of our needs, right? I need this if I'm going to be XYZ. I need this if I'm going to produce this type of music. I need this to move my career forward. And so distinguishing those voices of want and need, and then allowing for inspiration to be the guide, is huge on your journey and creating money, saving money, and just taking you where you want to go on the easiest path. Because like you said, if you have to buy something and there's all these other steps with it, it's not easy, right?
Yeah, and I think you talked a lot about like money chasers and how they tend to like, there's that story, that saying, that cliche of, oh, I need to spend money in order to get money, which I completely disagree with now.
Yay. And that's like the money. Finding Nemo recently, like I like imagine I'm seeing the sharks, fish are friends, not food. Like money chasers meeting would be like, you gotta spend money to make money.
I imagine them all like around like a really terrible polyurethane peeling table, just chanting with their hands like pounding on the table, saying, spend money to make money, spend money to make, like, oh my God, I can't even imagine it now. Like, no.
Right? Yeah. And this is, for listeners, if you don't know what we're saying, Money Chaser, go to identifyyourmoneystory.com and download the guide to identify your money story. If this is new or you haven't heard, I was a money chaser at one point in my journey, and Dave was, and that's why we're really talking about this, because that is the chant in a money chaser's mind all the time. So I need this because I need to spend money to make money, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Please get that book. That one hipped your book. Yeah, your book totally hipped me to that. Yeah. To understanding that story and to be able to like work with it. That was.
Ooh, that's a good. So when you say work with it, because I teach this a lot, right? We want to become aware of our money chaser story so that we can change it, but we're not digging into it. So when you say work with it, how have you worked with it along your journey?
I don't know if I can really consciously say exactly. I know that everything that I do, all the assignments that I work on, all the questions that I ask, have had an overall effect of pushing me into a new and better money story. Yeah, and that I can say that for sure. Yeah, I never sat down. No. I remember now. Like I remember. Like it was probably better than a year ago, where I asked you, it's like, there's this story that just keeps on coming back to me, and you're like, well, just write a new story. And I was like, well, that's easy to do, but like, you said, feel the feelings that come up, but just change your story. Like let the old one go, choose the new one, feel your feelings. Again, cut and dry, really, really simple. I'm sure that I, was a little naughty and was like, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. But it didn't last long. I will, to my credit, it did not last long.
Yeah. I also, I will not that you need to feel better, but I think that like naughty streak might also be a characteristic of those of us who are money chasers, because we're so like generally very against the grain and want, and that's part of how that story develops, is that these good parts of us, and then we want to make it happen, right? And so I think that against the grain, I recognize that in myself sometimes, even in conversation with Jen, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, so yeah, it's, and I love that you highlighted, we didn't really fix it. We choose to write that story when it comes up and we see it, because the importance of knowing that money chaser story is the awareness. And the awareness, when we went to coach, we talked about this that was this interview. We talked about, having money to put in the bank. Okay, now what do I do with this extra money? And when I said, okay, well, what was your former money story? You're like, money chaser. I'm like, oh, we put it in the bank, right? Because that's how we write as a former money chaser. That's a very powerful way to write our new story, is to have money in the bank and to have money in a savings account. And so it's just this light awareness that this is where I came from, and that stuff might bubble up as I grow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Well, let's talk about some coaching that really clicked. And so when you're feeling overwhelmed, incredibly weird, and there's all these stories that you no longer agree with, and you're just playing whack-a-mole to shut them down, what's the process that you now use to move through that space?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm still getting used to this and still understanding it better. I think you had recommended to me, like, at one point, you can process a story, but you can't take it. You can't bring it into your system. You can't be like, take it and own it. Like, especially if it's a story that just keeps on coming back and coming back and coming back. You can't. If I really wanted to let that one go, then I can't personalize that story anymore. However, there are certain emotions or feelings or just whatever that come up from that one story that need to be felt.
Right.
And I'll allow myself that I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner or a freshman at sophomore. A freshman at, Law of Attraction University, whatever it was. I'd recommend it for an upperclassman to just feel and to understand that story and to keep it in. I kept it in my mind, but really my focus was on feeling the feelings underneath the story.
Yeah.
And as soon as I felt those feelings, I was like, okay, this one truly is gone. I don't have to think about this. And if it bubbles up again in the future, that's fine. That's part of living. And then it was like I could go to the next story that was causing me trouble and do the same process. I'm still understanding this. I'm still getting better at it. I have a feeling like, 6 months from now, I'm going to be able to crush that really easy.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to go quick through the steps just for listeners, though Dave's right. This is more of an advanced story, but you can still hear it. And so you want to give the old story space to come out and be seen, because it's there. Like, so often I think in LOA, we're taught not to hear things or not to acknowledge, like, oh, this isn't what I want. But if there's an old story that's coming up, it needs to be seen so that it can dissipate, right? So it's not about ignoring it. You can let it come to the surface. And like you said, you don't indulge it or you don't make it your own. You just let it be there, sort of like sitting it on a, display in your house or something, or in a museum, to just sort of be there and be seen. And then you feel the feelings that fuel it. Right. And stay with that and feel those feelings. And then you get to choose to live a new story after that one has been given space and the emotions have flowed through you. And what I love that you add at the end, which is so good because movement always helps this process, is you said, then I do lots of yoga, which is awesome.
Always helps.
Yes, always, because it keeps that energy moving, right? And opening that space, moving through and then opening new space. So I love that. Amazing. As we wrap up today, is there anything on your heart or your mind that you want to make sure that you share or that you feel called to share or say?
Gosh, nothing's coming to mind.
That's okay.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind right now.
Perfect. I just love to give that space because sometimes we have those whispers that it's like, oh, someone needs to hear this or whatever. So it's all about giving that space and being okay if there's nothing there, right?
Right. Totally.
Yeah, I love it. Well, before we go, I want you to share if someone wants to connect with you on music, composing, anything, how do they connect with you, find out more about you?
My website is daveworthmusic.com. It's my last name is spelled not like you think. It's WIRTH. So Dave WIRTH music.com. And that has all the links to all the music that I've created over the years and a bunch of extra stuff that's just that was super fun to put together and just give to the world. Like I love writing a lot of long form articles on film composing and stuff like that. So daveworthmusic.com.
Awesome. So if you feel called or inspired, go check out Dave and connect with him. Thank you for this interview, Dave. Thank you for listening, and make sure to come back next week when Dave interviews me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on the Law of Attraction Manifesting Success Stories show. To learn how to attract more money into your life, go to your favorite book retailer and order Cassie's book, Manifest $10,000.